You're all very welcome to the Great Agri-Food Debate 2023. Students of food and agriculture at third level colleges across Ireland and the UK are gathering virtually for this, our 8th Annual Great Agri-Food Debate. It's a joint initiative between Dawn Meats and McDonald's, who are proud to be supporting the next generation of business leaders. Our topic today is an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. It's now my pleasure to invite our judges to introduce themselves and say a few words. So we'll begin today with Dan McSweeney. Dan, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good morning to everybody at the two colleges. My name is Dan McSweeney, as Paul said, and I'm the chairman of Board BIA. And I'm looking forward to the debate this morning. It's a very interesting and challenging subject. And as always, we look forward to hearing some new ideas and some good views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And next we go to Cathal O'Connor. Good morning, Cathal.
Morning, Paul. Thanks very much. As Paul mentioned, my name is Cathal O'Connor. I'm very happy to be joining you from AIB Corporate Banking, where I look after food manufacturing and agriculture, along with a few other sectors. But very best of luck in what will undoubtedly be a really interesting topic for debate. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you, Cathal. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the third of our 5 judges this morning, Harriet Wilson.
Thank you, Paul. I work for McDonald's UK and Ireland. I'm responsible for agriculture and sustainable food sourcing here. We've had some really good debates so far. I think this is a really tricky topic. So I think we're all going to learn lots from it, but good luck to both teams.
Thank you, Harriet. And now I'd ask Tim Rycroft to introduce himself. Tim, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good morning to everybody, and good luck to the teams today. My name is Tim Rycroft. I'm Chief Executive of the UK's agricultural levy body, the AHDB, and I'm, of course, fascinated to see the views that are put forward and the challenges that we'll get to today's topic, which is, of course, so much of interest to all of us.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. And finally, the 5th of our 5 judges, Isla Roebuck. You're very welcome, Isla.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everybody. I'm Isla Roebuck. I'm the Business Public Relations Director for Dunbia, and I'm looking forward to a very good debate from the two teams. I wish you both good luck this morning, and hope you enjoy this experience in this, our 8th Great Agricultural Food Debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Isla. I would now like to welcome UCC and DKIT to compete in our 4th debate of the 2023 Dawn Meats and McDonald's Great Agri-Food Debate. Team members, the hard work is done. Debate well and try to enjoy it at the same time. And before we get into the cut and thrust of the competition, I wish to remind you again of some of the key points. Having said that, we know that you've already received the detailed rules. So just to remember, the team captains will open and close the debate and introduce their teammates. Each student speech will be a maximum of 5 minutes. Time will be monitored by our designated timekeeper, my colleague Beth Ann Travis, whose decision will be final. She will indicate 4 minutes by saying time and 5 minutes by saying time up. Interrupting a student while they are speaking is not allowed. After each speaker, 1 point of information may be offered by the competing team, and points of information are not allowed following the captain's closing arguments. And just on that, the judges will be watching keenly to see that the points of information are concise and to the point. So without further ado, it's time to start the competition this afternoon. To remind you all that our topic is an exclusive plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. And to start with proposing the motion, I will now call on UCC Captain Michelle Egan. Michelle, over to you.
Good afternoon, chairperson, adjudicators, members of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michelle Egan, and as the proud captain of this UCC debate team, I warmly welcome you all to this afternoon's Great Agri-Food Debate. The speakers of my team today, Paul, Edmund, Barry, and I, are honoured to be here before you to wholeheartedly propose this motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Cambridge Dictionary defines the word exclusively as limited to a specific thing or group. Therefore, an exclusively plant-based diet flies in the face of the balanced diet we all strive to implement in our daily lives. A healthy person at its most simplistic level is someone who is free from disease or illness. A healthy planet can only be achieved through sustainable practices. The three pillars of such are economic, social, and environmental sustainability, meaning we must meet the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of future generations for this planet to be considered healthy. My colleague Paul will illustrate to you the problematic health issues which arise from this restrictive diet that the opposition will undoubtedly foolishly promote today. He will demonstrate how researchers and world-renowned organisations alike would never recommend an exclusively plant-based diet, especially to our most vulnerable members of society. Edmund will challenge the opposition as they attempt to defame the honest and hard-working livestock farmers of this nation, claiming that avocados and spinach are all you need for a healthy diet. But what would this mean for our proud agricultural sector? He will also walk you through the economic impact of ending the production of our main export commodities, meat and dairy, and the consequent decimation of rural communities. Finally, Barry will eloquently demonstrate how it is not a simple case of good versus evil when considering the production of plant alternatives versus traditional protein sources. From the miscalculation of greenhouse gas figures to the comparatively low use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, livestock farming has been used as a scapegoat in sustainability discussions. Barry will also question the practicalities of supposedly converting every inch of farmland on our fair green isle to tillage production. It would be from a very privileged viewpoint to make the assumption that everybody, and the developing world in particular, would even be in a position to access an exclusively plant-based diet. According to the UN World Food Programme, as many as 828 million people worldwide are unsure of where their next meal is coming from, with 70% of these vulnerable people living in areas afflicted by war. How can you expect these malnourished people to obtain adequate nourishment along with sufficient supplementation to survive on a diet like this? It is for this reason that charitable organisations such as BOHER have chosen to donate livestock, not plants, to these struggling communities, providing up to 20 litres of milk per cow per day. As Edmund will explain further, the nutrient density and bioavailability of milk offers greater nourishment than the equivalent amount of any alternative plant source. Now, my team and I by no means suggest that a completely carnivorous diet is the way forward. However, we challenge the opposition's stance that an exclusively plant-based diet could ever be healthy for either planet or person, given the economic, environmental, and social complications associated with this ludicrous, extremist concept of an exclusively plant-based diet. We believe a balanced diet, including unprocessed animal produce, is healthiest. However, I must remind you that in today's motion, we are discussing an exclusively plant-based diet. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to reflect rationally on the topic before us and join us in upholding the motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And I wonder if we have a point of information from DKIT, please.
Given the projected need to increase food production by 70% by 2050 and double production in developing countries, how do you propose to address the challenge without exacerbating the negative impacts of animal production on climate change and animal welfare?
Thank you for your point of information. I won't go into too much detail because my other team members will cover it more extensively, but the nutrient density and bioavailability of a glass of milk is way more than any food comparison, any alternative plant food comparison, I should say. For that reason, it is much more productive to have a cow than have a field of crops, especially in areas where you'll need irrigation.
Thank you, Michelle. So, opposing the motion, an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person, is DKIT. So I now call on DKIT's captain, Sarah Armstrong, to make her opening captain's remarks. Sarah.
Good afternoon, judges, adjudicators, viewers, and fellow members of the proposition. My name is Sarah Armstrong, and today my team and I would like to come before you all to welcome you to this year's Great Agri-Food Debate, as we come to strongly oppose the motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for the planet or person. This is not merely a debate, but a matter of our very existence as a species and the sustainability of our planet. A plant-based diet is not about depriving ourselves of certain foods, but rather about making conscious decisions to choose plant-based options that are beneficial to our bodies and the planet. Allow me to take a closer look as I define today's motion. In the context of diets, exclusive can refer to a dietary approach that limits or eliminates certain types of foods or food groups. According to the Harvard Medical School, a plant-based diet focuses on foods primarily from plants. This includes not only fruit and vegetables, but also nuts, seeds, oils, for example. It does not mean that you are vegetarian or vegan or never eat meat and dairy. Rather, you are proportionally choosing more of your foods from plant sources. Healthy refers to a state of well-being for both people and planet, encompassing physical, mental, and environmental factors. Various forms of plant-based diets exist, including vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, and flexitarian, and they all share the same ideology of being primarily plant-based. In fact, a quick Google search will reveal 9 different plant-based diet options. So there's absolutely no excuse for not finding a plant-based option that suits your needs. But the proposing team is not only challenging our dietary choices, but they are also endangering our planet, agriculture, ecosystems, human health, and the economy. If we don't take action, we risk a future where our children and grandchildren will never get to experience the beauty of nature as we have. We cannot let this happen. The projections are alarming. To feed a world population of 9.1 billion people in 2050, we need to increase overall food production by 70% from 2005 to 2050, and almost double production in developing countries. This means we will need an additional 593 million hectares of agricultural land to meet this demand. The urgency to act is clear. We must change our food system to ensure that we can sustainably feed the growing population. It is essential that we adopt sustainable agricultural practices and shift towards more plant-based diets to ensure food security for future generations while mitigating the environmental impact of livestock production. The time for change is now, and we cannot afford to wait any longer. So allow me to introduce my fellow teammates. Claire will argue that a plant-based diet can have numerous health benefits, reduce the strain on global food systems, and improve human health. She encourages proportionally choosing more plant-based foods and moderating animal product consumption to maintain good health. Claire will also urge individuals to take responsibility for the effects of consuming animal products on the environment and to make necessary changes to promote a sustainable food system for the planet. Ciara will argue that the continuation of animal-based agricultural industry is a threat to the environment and the well-being of future generations. She will highlight the negative impact of animal agriculture on the planet, such as deforestation and overfishing. She will present you with the staggering statistics that will urge you all to consider the impact of your dietary choices on the planet and future generations. Our fourth speaker, Oisin, will present you with the many benefits of plant-based diets for the well-being of people and planet. He will also highlight the importance of supporting farmers who are at the heart of the movement towards a plant-based diet. We may not feel the full effects of our choices in our lifetime, but we owe it to ourselves and our children to make a difference. We are here today to passionately oppose the motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for the planet or person. We ask you to join us in making a conscious effort to choose plant-based options for our health and the health of our planet. Let's make a difference and secure a brighter future for ourselves and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I wonder, have UCC a point of information for Sarah?
I would like to wonder, we're presented with the argument that a pescatarian and a vegetarian diet will cover this, but the topic clearly states an exclusively plant-based diet. So I would like to just ask, is a pescatarian and a vegetarian diet really in the spirit of this?
We have not failed to define today's motion correctly today. Just to reiterate, the motion does state exclusively plant-based diets, and if the organisers wanted us to discuss exclusively vegan diets and maybe pescatarian diets, it would have been stated in the motion. The exclusively plant-based diets allows us to discuss a wide range of plant-based options, including vegan, pescatarian and flexitarian, which you're all here today.
Thank you for that, Sarah. So I now welcome, opposing the motion, an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person, Claire Bulger from DKIT. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks very much, Paul. Good afternoon, honourable judges, esteemed adjudicators and members of the proposition. My name is Claire Bulger and I am before you today to vehemently oppose the motion that an exclusive plant-based diet is neither healthy for the planet nor the person. The proposition will have you believe that we have to consume animal products to be healthy. But let me ask you, is this really the case? As a society, we need to acknowledge the ethical and environmental implications of consuming animal products at the rate we are currently consuming them. We must take responsibility for the effects it has on our planet and our well-being. The truth is, a plant-based diet is not about deprivation or sacrificing our taste buds. Instead, it's about making better choices by proportionally choosing more plant-based foods. By doing so, we can reduce the strain on the global food system and improve human health. Did you know that a plant-based diet has numerous health benefits? It reduces the risk of chronic diseases such as coronary heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers. A study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that a plant-based diet can reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes by 23%. Meanwhile, a plant-based diet can reduce the risk, Meanwhile, processed meats like bacon and sausage have been classified as Group 1 carcinogens by the World Health Organization, meaning they cause cancer in humans. Red meat has been classified as a Group 2A carcinogen, meaning it probably causes cancer in humans too. The American Heart Association recommends limiting red meat intake to 1 or 2 servings per week and choosing lean cuts of meat to reduce the risk of heart disease. Did you know that farm animals raised for food consume 73% of the world's antimicrobials? This includes penicillin and tetracycline that are commonly used to treat infections. Unfortunately, this overuse of antimicrobials in animal agriculture is contributing to the global crisis of antimicrobial resistance, which is projected to cause the loss of 10 million human lives by 2050. It is high time that we start listening to the dietary guidelines around the world that promote adopting a more plant-based diet. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations found that livestock sector is responsible for 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than the entire transportation sector. The Eat Well Guide and the Irish Food Pyramid have updated their guidelines to emphasize plant-based products with some animal-based products. We must take this advice seriously and make the necessary changes to improve our health and the health of our planet. Plant-based eating is recognised as an intervention to improve outcomes by helping to prevent, control, and even reverse chronic diseases. It begs the question, if dietary guidelines around the world promote adopting a more plant-based diet, why are we still consuming vast quantities of meat and dairy products? It is time for us to take the responsibility for our choices and make the necessary changes to improve our health and the health of our planet. In conclusion, I implore you all to embrace the various forms of a plant-rich diet. There's no one size fits all here. There's the Mediterranean diet, the Nordic diet, the vegan diet, the vegetarian diet, the flexitarian diet, to name a few. By doing so, we can improve our health, reduce our risk of chronic diseases, and promote a more sustainable food system for our planet. So, I ask you, do you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem? The choice is yours. By changing the types of food we eat and how often we eat them, it is possible to ease the pressures on the global food system. Let us make the conscious decision to be the change we wish to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And do we have a point of information from UCC, please?
I'd like to just question why both sausages and rashers, which are extremely processed meats, were picked as an example of being bad for health. And there are plenty of wholesome other foods that can be taken as an example.
I'm not going to take that point of interest, thanks.
Thank you. So it is now my pleasure to ask Paul O'Brien from UCC to propose the motion. Paul.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, judges, members of the public, members of the opposition, and industry experts. My name is Paul O'Brien, and today I'm proposing that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. To start this debate, I would like to ask you the question, how important is balance in your life? Our diets are no exception to this, and nutritionally, we need a balance of nutrients to enable our bodies to function and fuel lifestyles with high nutritional demands. To reference the NHS, they specify that eating a balanced diet involves eating a wide variety of foods in the right proportions and consuming the right amount of food and drink to achieve and maintain a healthy body weight. This does not mention anywhere about eating the same types of foods day in, day out, which is what a plant-based diet focuses on. How people can think in this day and age that it is healthy for both humans and planets to be pursuing a plant-based diet is ludicrous. Nutritionally, the difference between plants and meat-based diets are significant. Vegetarian diets are generally low in protein and high in carbohydrates, and meat-based diets high in protein and low in carbohydrates. Research has shown that protein is needed in the human body at a rate of 0.75 grams per day. This equates to 56 grams per day for men and 45 grams per day for women. How is a person supposed to fulfill this hefty demand when utilizing a diet that gives low protein amounts? Animal foods are the complete food. They contain all the nutrients that are required to sustain life and growth. B12 is a vitamin that people struggle to find in a vegetarian diet, and this is found generally in all animal produce. Plant-based diets must supplement their diets with B12, and this places people who struggle to access this key vitamin at risk of developing a deficiency. What are the signs of a B12 deficiency? They are extreme tiredness, a lack of energy, psychological problems, including depression and confusion. According to the World Bank, 9.2% of the world, or nearly 700 million people, survive on less than $1.90 a day. Does the opposition really think that these people will worry about whether their food is fortified with vitamin B12 if they go plant-based? I don't think so. They'll experience and live with these symptoms, as they won't have access to healthcare to tell them eating meat would solve their deficiency problem. Nutrient density is very important in the makeup of food. Animal-based products are proven to be the winner in this area, with animal-based products having a greater density per 100 grams of product compared to plant-based. Having a nutrient-dense food is key, as it means a person will have to eat less to get their necessary nutrients. Many older people have reduced appetite levels. If an older person was to follow a plant-based diet, it would potentially lead to reduced energy intake, and they would be at risk of suffering low energy levels or worse. Caseoker is a deficiency caused by diet with insufficient levels of protein but adequate carbohydrates. Initially, this horrible plight induces swelling under the skin, oedema, and it commonly affects young children in the developing world. Around 45% of deaths among children under the age of 5 years are linked to malnutrition. This is the sort of situation we the people risk if we eliminate animal produce from our diets and adopt a plant-based diet. Are these problems you would like to see brought into your family? the most vulnerable in society, the young, the old, being severely affected due to a lack of nutrients in their diet. Children have a certain requirement of nutrients to fuel development. Limiting a child's nutritional intake at such a young age will have detrimental effects on that child going forward in its life. This would lead to issues such as poor growth and cognitive impairment. In essence, these malnourished children would simply be surviving as opposed to thriving. Even the World Cancer Research Fund doesn't completely recommend the avoidance of meat from a diet, and evidence shows that eating lean meats and eggs, for example, can lead to a reduction in risk of coronary heart disease. To conclude, I hope the information outlined above is helpful to you and that it appeals to your logical side of reason. I am absolutely convinced that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Thank you for your attention and listening to me today.
And thank you, Paul. Have we a point of information from DKIT, please?
So you say that, so the countries around the world that benefit from a plant-based diet are the likes of Hong Kong and countries around the Mediterranean. So how would you argue that a plant-based diet is actually poor for people?
Basically, accessibility is a big thing with plant-based diets. Like, not everyone has access to get all the nutrients into their systems due to cost, accessibility to countries, the geographic location, and like animal foods are the complete food. They have all the essential amino acids. Plant foods don't necessarily have the essential amino acids. They're kind of incomplete food sources, and there's a lot of combination of foods required to get the same amount of protein that you can get from animal-based products and other nutrients. Okay.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I would now like to call on Ciara Smith, representing DKIT, to oppose the motion: an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Ciara.
Good afternoon, esteemed judges, adjudicators, and members of the proposition. My name is Ciara Smith, and I stand before you today with a fervent opposition to the motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor human. Let me ask you this. Did we inherit this world from our parents, or did we borrow it from our children? The answer is clear, and yet despite our awareness of the consequences of our actions, we continue to perpetrate destructive practices that harm the planet and ultimately ourselves. What is a healthy planet, you might ask? While we may not have an exact definition, we certainly know what an unhealthy planet looks like, and that is the reality we currently inhabit. The Amazon rainforest, often referred to as the lungs of the earth, is rapidly being destroyed by animal-based agriculture. Forest habitats are being lost, ecosystems are being destroyed, and carbon dioxide is being released into the atmosphere. Ask yourselves, what impact does animal agriculture have on the planet? In the Sahara, overgrazing is causing desertification by destroying the canopy that protects the soil. In Australia, overfishing is causing the destruction of the coral reef ecosystems, and the numbers speak for themselves. Meat and dairy production account for over 80% of all greenhouse gas emissions from the feed sector and 24% of global greenhouse gas emissions. It is a sad reality that Ireland's animal-based agriculture industry is a significant contributor to the degradation of our environment. The evidence is clear that agriculture is responsible for a staggering 32% of Ireland's overall greenhouse gas emissions, with the majority coming from animal-based agriculture. We must acknowledge that this industry not only plays a major role in climate change, but also contributes to water pollution, with animal manures and fertilizer from animal-based agriculture being identified as the main source of the problem. We cannot ignore the facts any longer. The continuation of this industry is a threat to our environment and the well-being of future generations. It is time for us to take responsibility and make the necessary changes to reduce our environmental impact, and that transitioning to a plant-based diet is a crucial step in the right direction. Do you want to know why Venice is suffering? Climate change is causing an increase in extreme weather events such as heavy rainfall, storms, and hurricanes. This results in higher water levels and more flooding, which can particularly which can be particularly damaging to Venice's delicate architecture and infrastructure. But let's not forget about the effect of beef production on our planet. Research has shown that the environmental degradation ratios of meat compared with soya protein production are staggering. Emissions of acidifying substances, pesticides, and metals are respectively 100 times greater for meat protein compared with soya. The intensive production of meat is considerably more taxing to the environment than nutritionally equivalent plant protein foods. So what is the solution? A drastic reduction in the consumption of meat and dairy foods by large segments of the world's population is unavoidable if we want a sustainable future. Our plant-based diet at the global level is imperative, and the benefits are clear. Not only would it improve the life expectancy of our planet, it would also increase ours. Let me ask you this. Do you want to live a long and healthy life? Greece has been traditionally counted among the top country in terms of life expectancy, mainly due to the country's Mediterranean diet. A Mediterranean diet is based on whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, and the results speak for themselves. I'm not here today to tell you to cut out all animal-based foods from your diet, but I urge you to focus more on the incorporation of plant-based foods into your everyday diets. Paul says that elderly people don't get enough nutrients from plant-based diets, but yet the typical Hong Kong diet is 73% plant-based and 27% animal-based, and it has led Hong Kong to have the highest life expectancy in the world at an average of 85.29 years. So I urge you to explain this. In conclusion, I implore you to consider the impact of our dietary choices on the planet and our own health. Let us not forget, we did not inherit this world from our parents. We borrowed it from our children. It is our duty to ensure that we leave a world that is healthy and sustainable for generations to come. Thank you.
And thank you, Ciara. And I'm wondering if we have a point of information from UCC, please.
Ciara, you mentioned meat and dairy production account for 24% of global greenhouse gases. Yet, do we even know if these emissions are true? Lawrence Chalou said at a recent climate summit that we're overestimating methane emissions from Irish cows by over 12%.
Yeah, so I got this from a global source. I got this from the EPA, the figures I received. So they're auctions globally. So
okay, thank you for that. And so our next speaker proposing the motion is Edmund Barry Casey from UCC. Over to you, Edmund.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to speak to you. I'd like to begin my speech with a little bit of rebuttal. So the opposition have completely failed to define the motion. The motion is an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor for person. This is a clear statement. Exclusively plant-based, referring to a diet which only contains plants. How the opposition have failed to correctly even define their argument is simply absurd. The Mediterranean diet, which they extol, is not an exclusively plant-based diet. Neither is the flexitarian, neither is the vegetarian. How can we possibly take their argument seriously if they can't even define their argument? Ciara, in her last speech, asked, do I want to live a healthy life? I do. The only way to do that is with a plant-based diet with an incorporation of meat, which is what we call for. The opposition are yet to make a single coherent point supporting an exclusively plant-based diet. So far, all they have done is make the same argument that we have. Esteemed guests, adjudicators, members of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Edmund Casey, and today it's my pleasure to speak to you on a topic that's recently taken centre stage in our public discourse. My colleagues and I on the proposition team are of the conviction that an exclusively plant-based diet is too restrictive and extreme to be a healthy alternative for people. According to the World Health Organization, a healthy diet must prevent malnutrition. A report from GAIN found that half of children in the world suffer from some form of micronutrient deficiency. This figure is simply astounding. There is, however, hope. As my colleague Paul described, wholesome animal products are abundant sources of essential micronutrients, crucial for healthy development. Milk, meat, fish, and eggs are essential sources of high-quality protein. Additionally, these foods are rich in bioavailable micronutrients such as iron, calcium, vitamin B12. The list goes on ad nauseum. The opposition, however, have been clinging desperately to the argument that a plant-based food is an easy source of nutrients. This is a pure fallacy. They willfully ignore the decades of research that have gone into food nutrient bioavailability, and worse still, their extreme stances ignore common sense. It's common sense, for example, that milk, a perfectly balanced food for the young mammal, is a benefit to vulnerable groups. A single glass provides children with half of their daily calcium and magnesium requirements and a quarter of their vitamin A requirements. It's an excellent source of protein. On an exclusively plant-based diet, which is what the topic is about, a child would have to consume a 200-gram salad, a meal about the size of a small football, to meet their demands that will otherwise be met by drinking milk. We cannot possibly be expected to ask our children to choose between a glass of wholesome and healthy Irish milk and a football-sized meal of astringent and most likely imported leaves. And that is indeed our future if we embrace an exclusively plant-based diet. To reiterate, removing animal products from our diets can only lead to an increase in deficiencies. Plant-based sources of minerals and vitamins are dramatically less bioavailable and they affect vulnerable groups gravely. The woman of childbearing age, who has high iron requirements, the young child who is growing rapidly, the elderly person who cannot often eat high quantities of food. Are we to sacrifice these most vulnerable sections of our society for this extreme and outlandish diet which would be exclusively plant-based? How are we to build a healthy society if we cannot even meet our nutritional demands as it stands? The opposition will glorify the benefits of supplementation, pills and shakes that will be required to sustain a restrictive plant-only diet. Where do these dietary supplements come from? Iron sulfate is a waste product produced as a means of the heavy metal industry. Copper, supplements and other things like that are formed in laboratories. This is a very restrictive diet. It's also essential to note that while proponents of the opposition's argument demonise our largest indigenous industry, that Ireland's grass-fed meat and dairy is of the best quality in the world, making them crucial in meeting our micro and macronutrient intakes globally. Studies have shown time and time again that removing animals from agriculture is not viable. A healthy production system incorporating both beast and grain is the most suitable for biodiversity, production and indeed waste management. The Irish Nutritional and Dietetic Institute recommends substituting meat with nutritious alternatives such as milk, cheese, yogurt and eggs. A dangerously restrictive diet based solely on plants just does not cut it. This is all without even mentioning the economic costs of moving away from animal production. Think of our economy. Last year only, dairy exports were worth 6.8 billion euros to our economy. That's a billion with a B. This money flows into our rural economies, where the average Irish dairy farmer earned a net profit of 140,000 euros last year. The opposition argument will call for the eradication of our industry. It calls for the planting of trees in marginal land. Indeed, we all know the truth, that a monoculture of Sitka spruce would sprout from Cork to Donegal if we were to entertain these radical notions. How are we to feed our rural communities then? How can the opposition look to the average dairy, sheep and beef producer and tell them that they have to give up an enormous part of their livelihood because beef and lamb and dairy production is now considered tantamount to evil? In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot understate the disastrous effects that an exclusively plant-based diet would have on our nutritional health and our economic prosperity. It perplexes me how the opposition argument has even gained traction over the past few decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmund. And I wonder if we have a point of information from DKIT, please.
Can you provide evidence that the economic benefits of animal agriculture outweigh the negative consequences for the environment and human health?
So providing evidence would be quite simple. If we cut out all of our animal production in the world, I can imagine that the amount of farms who go to business will be massive. Also, if you listen to my speech, I clearly outlined the nutritional damage that would be done to people if we did go off this diet. And I think that far outweighs the damage that we could potentially do to the climate. And we're also not calling for a completely meat-based diet. We never did. We always have called for moderation when it comes to meat production. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Edmund. So incredibly, already we've reached the fourth and final opposing speaker from DKIT. May I welcome Oisín Cassidy. Over to you, Oisín.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, distinguished judges, adjudicators, and fellow members of the proposition. My name is Oisín Cassidy, and today I stand before you to strongly oppose this senseless motion. As our opponents have said, they think we want to eliminate all animals and go completely vegan, and they do not consider the scientific backing behind the definition of plant-based, which ultimately rewards you with many benefits both physically, mentally, and financially. My teammate Claire has already discussed the many physiological benefits of a plant-based diet, but one critical aspect that the proposition has neglected is the mental health. Mental health is an essential topic that many are afraid to discuss, but it's crucial that we address it today. According to a recent Healthy Ireland survey, 1 in 8 participants reported that they knew someone close or very close to them who died by suicide. This is a harsh and devastating reality that has impacted us all in some way. But adopting a plant-based diet will reduce inflammation in the body, which has been linked to depression, anxiety, and other mental and emotional well-being disorders. A plant-based diet can also increase the intake of nutrients essential for brain health, such as B vitamins and omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. Furthermore, plant-based diets can help reduce stress and promote relaxation, thanks to magnesium found in nuts, seeds, and leafy greens. Additionally, plant-based diets contain natural mood-boosting compounds such as tryptophan and theobromine, found in bananas, fruits, and chocolate, that promote the feelings of well-being and happiness. A statement released by WHO in 2022 documented that mental health was a rising factor as a result of climate change. The findings concur with a recent report by the IPCC, when published in February this year, revealed that rapidly increasing climate change poses a rising threat to mental health and psychological well-being, from emotional distress to anxiety, depression, grief, and suicidal behaviour. But what about our farmers? A Teagasc Farmers report found that 27% of farmers were in poor health and general well-being, and the agricultural industry is very challenging for them as it stands. A survey conducted by AgriLand and Empathy Research found that out of 3,000 participants, a staggering 46% of participants had experienced feelings of depression or severe sadness, and 8% had said they were impacted by suicide or attempted suicide. These are concerning statistics, and we must take them into consideration too. They are also concerned about what the future holds for them and their livestock systems, and what many people see in them as the villain. It's hard for them to put a voice out there for help. And yet farmers are at the heart of this movement towards a plant-based diet. Teagasc reports show that beef farmers fall well below what other enterprises earn in terms of income, and we may not see these enterprises continue. Alternatives, which are shown in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine's Climate Action Plan 23, states that by 2030, they want to see 400,000 hectares of tillage and 450,000 hectares of organics being practiced on the island of Ireland. This would see a way for farmers to drive sustainably grown produce, which will lower the rising emissions we are now facing. Some resources may include conversion of farming practices, such as growing crops under a small livestock system, or even the use of vertical growing tunnels, in which multiple crops can be grown at one time. Vertical farming is a revolutionary method of growing crops in a controlled environment that offers numerous benefits over traditional farming methods. According to the Association for Vertical Farming, this method of farming can increase crop yields by up to 70 times per square foot compared to traditional farming methods. Additionally, vertical farming uses up to 90% less water than traditional farming methods, making it a much more sustainable option. According to the World Economic Forum, vertical farming has the potential to reduce carbon emissions by up to 80% compared to traditional farming methods. And it can also reduce transportation costs by up to 70%, as produce is grown and consumed within urban areas. With these impressive statistics, it's clear that vertical farming is one of the promising solutions to the challenges we face in food production and sustainability. Foods such as avocados or oranges, which Ireland would normally import, can be grown under the right temperature sustainably. Farming's social impact on farmers is essential, and we cannot afford to overlook it. Let us work together to ensure that our farmers are supported and that their communities are strengthened by their presence. As we move forward, let us recognise the unique challenges and opportunities that come with farming, and let us support policies that promote sustainable agriculture, encourage alternative ways of farming, and provide farmers with the resources they need to succeed. To summarise, a plant-based diet is good for the planet and people, and the benefits extend far beyond just physical health and money. It is our responsibility to support our farmers and promote sustainable agriculture. So, let us stand united in this case and work towards a better future for all. Thank you.
Oisín, thank you. And I wonder if we have any point of information from UCC, please.
Given that B12 is only found in animal produce and it is essential for regular neurological function, how do you suggest, other than supplementation needed through dietitians' advice, that every farmer in the country who hardly goes to the doctor enough as it is going to be healthy on this diet?
Yeah, as you said, B12, its function is from energy which is released from food to make red blood cells and healthy nervous system. So food sources include meat, fish, eggs, cheese and milk, yes, and fortified breakfast cereals such as wheat, oats, etc. Your recommended daily intake, I think, is 1.5 micrograms per day. So it's actually very minimal. I don't think you need to go to a dietitian or anything like that to, seek advice for taking in such a small amount of vitamin B12. And for, let's say, the likes of vegans who are in this plant-based diet, fortified soy milk contains B12, fortified rice drinks also contains B12, and fortified cereals is another way of consuming B12.
Thank you very much, Oisín. And so we're now about to hear from the fourth and final speaker representing UCC, proposing the motion, an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Barry Eric Stratford. Barry, over to you.
Good afternoon, chairpersons, ladies, gentlemen, judges and members of the public and opposition. My name is Barry Stratford, and today I'm going to prove to you that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for the planet nor person. I'm going to talk to you about pesticides, fertiliser, land use in Ireland and methane. The opposition will likely talk about the so-called big bad dairy industry that has our emissions off the charts and our groundwater radioactive green in colours from fertilisers and pesticides, but this is far from the truth. Looking at the arable and the grassland and fodder crop survey report 2016 and 17, we can clearly see who the big users of pesticides are. Unsurprisingly, it's the tillage sector with 1.058 million kilos of pesticides spread on arable farms that year versus just 516,000 kilos of pesticides spread on grassland and fodder crop farms. 31.4 times more is a startling figure that represents just how much more pesticide per hectare was applied to arable crop. Yes, you heard that correctly, a whopping 31.4 times more. Moving on to fertiliser, using data from the latest fertiliser use survey report 2005-2015, grassland farmers apply 89 kilos of nitrogen per hectare, 7 kilos of phosphorus per hectare, and 17 kilos of potassium per hectare. Tillage farmers apply a massive 1.64 times more nitrogen per hectare, 3.29 times more phosphorus per hectare, and 3.8 times more potassium per hectare. Tillage fields are not just impacted chemically, but also physically, to a much greater extent from regular ploughing and harrowing. Not only does this release carbon, but it also damages soil structure. As US President Franklin D. Roosevelt warned back in 1937, the nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. Born and raised on a County Cavan farm, it's farcical listening to people say that every farmer should be growing tillage. My grandfather bought the family farm in 1962 and he thought he'd try his hand at making some money by growing wheat and barley. 5 years later, he put the whole farm back into grass. Our stony, hilly, difficult fields just weren't suitable for tillage. It would be irrational and nonsensical for the opposition to think that an exclusively plant-based farmers are the future. Many farmers around Ireland would face a similar predicament, much like that of my grandfather when he tried to grow tillage. In the Teagasc Tillage Sector Development Plan 2012, only 22% of Irish soils were deemed suitable for tillage crops. A paper by Gardner and Radford classifies the Republic of Ireland as consisting of 49.5% marginal land. Marginal land in this study is defined as areas beset by natural limitations imposed by soil topography and climate. Now, if you didn't know just how pivotal Irish beef is in terms of producing high quality protein, prepare to be amazed. A 2021 paper calculates that dairy beef in Ireland has an edible protein conversion ratio of 0.22, implying that 0.22 kilos of crop-sourced human digestible protein is consumed by dairy beef animals to produce 1 kilo of animal-sourced human digestible protein. The average land use requirement of the dairy beef system is 0.58. i.e. the land required to produce 1 kilo of human digestible protein from a dairy beef animal would directly yield a very disappointing 0.58 kilos of human digestible protein from a sustainable crop rotation. Ruminant enteric methane emissions are calculated using the GWP 100 method, in which methane is treated the same as carbon dioxide. This is well proven to be unfair and horribly inaccurate, as methane is a short-lived gas, breaking down over about 10 years. A stable livestock herd results in no additional methane being released, as this methane is part of a biogenic carbon cycle, where it is ultimately sequestered by plants and the cycle starts again. Carbon dioxide emitted from fossil fuels builds up over time and results in global warming. It's crystal clear that to protect our soil, livelihoods, and reduce our requirements of chemicals, we need a combination of livestock and tillage farmers working together, producing some extraordinarily high quality unprocessed food. This is what's good for both person and planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry. And I wonder if DKIT would like to offer a POI.
We are not arguing that we need to get rid of all livestock farms, but it is imperative that we do reduce production, as we already produce too much in Ireland. Irish food and livestock exports were responsible for 34.2 million tonnes of CO2 emissions in 2019, compared to 6.3 million tonnes of food imports as reported by the EPA.
Yeah, look, there again, like when we see one of our leading researchers in Teagasc saying we're overestimating methane gases, it's hard to believe is that 34% true. And there again, going back to what I said in one of my last few sentences about how we're calculating methane wrong in terms of GWP 100 versus GWP 100 star. We see the Intergovernmental Panels on Climate Change suggesting that we are calculating it wrong and we need to change that. So 34%, that's a hard figure to be definite on.
Thank you very much, Barry. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the arguments for and against the motion. An exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. And so for closing remarks, may I welcome back the opposing captain from DKIT, Sarah Armstrong. Sarah.
Thanks, Paul. So judges, adjudicators, viewers and members of the proposition, we come before you with one final plea for planet and people. Edmund, we have not failed to define the motion correctly today. In fact, you have. Just to reiterate, the motion states exclusively plant-based diets, as defined by Harvard Medical School, Association of UK Dietitians, and Columbia Medical School, to name but a few. Plant-based diets focus on foods primarily from plant-based, but do not completely exclude animal products. And to define exclusive, it is to limit or eliminate. We have to question how the proposition have sourced their definition, or have they picked up the first plant-based definition from an unreliable vegan website. If the organisers wanted us to discuss exclusively vegan diets, vegan would have been mentioned in the motion. As this is not the case, exclusively plant-based diets allow us to discuss a wide range of plant-based alternatives, including vegan, which you all hear today. We cannot ignore the overwhelming evidence that has been presented by Claire, Ciara and Oisín here today about how a plant-based diet is healthy for people and planet. We must act now to make a change. Our planet is suffering, and this has ultimately been ignored by Michelle and her fellow teammates. Michelle and her team have become so wound up on arguing the definition of the motion and avocados that they have completely neglected the impact of animal production on our planet. Because if we are to look at the motion, we are talking about people and planet. We are experiencing the devastating impacts of climate change as outlined by Ciara, and the livestock industry is a major contributor to this crisis, whether the proposition want to acknowledge this or not. We are not just talking about methane, Barry, we are talking about carbon and many other emissions. It is time to take responsibility for our actions and make changes to our diet that will have a positive impact on the planet. A plant-based diet can and will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, preserve biodiversity and conserve resources such as water and land. Barry, what you are suggesting is that we should increase our animal production to feed 9.1 billion, increase climate change, increase deforestation, increase decline in human health, and an increase in antibiotic resistance when countries attempt to treat diseases in this larger number of animals. Where do you intend to find an additional 593 million hectares to raise these livestock while also housing an additional 1.3 billion people? It is just not possible. Oisín has presented you with the facts on how we can sustainably produce enough produce to feed this growing population without any further implications on animal welfare, human health, climate, or the environment. But it is not just about the planet, it is also about our health. Our health is our wealth may sound like a gimmick, but it's the simple truth that we cannot afford to ignore. Paul has tried to scare you into believing that absolutely no meat in your diet is as harmful as having too much meat in your diet. What is harmful is a pessimistic and negative view to change. As Ciara has stated, Hong Kong has the longest life expectancy, yet this country is primarily plant-based. How does Paul argue that this is harmful for our health? The evidence presented by Claire is clear. A plant-based diet can reduce the risk of chronic disease such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some forms of cancer. As we finish here today, Think about the startling statistics presented by Oisín about mental health. By switching to a plant-based diet, we can improve our mental health and increase our energies and even improve our mood. It's a win-win situation. It's also worth noting that the organisers of today's event, Dawn Meats and McDonald's, have both shown support for plant-based diets. Dawn Meats has endorsed the Eat Balanced campaign, which has promoted numerous benefits of a well-balanced plant-based diet, as Claire has discussed here today. Similar to this, McDonald's has also responded to the growing demand for healthier and more sustainable options by introducing plant-based menu items such as vegan burger and incorporating more plant-based choices into its traditional menu. I urge you all to consider the power you hold as consumers. By choosing to eat more plant-based foods, we can create a demand for more sustainable and ethical food production practices. We can also support local farmers and promote biodiversity. Let us choose to make a difference with each meal that we consume. Let us embrace the power of plant-based diets and create a brighter, healthier future for ourselves and generations to come. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sarah. And now for closing remarks in support of the motion, may I welcome back UCC Captain Michelle Egan.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon once again. Before I make my closing statement, Dawn Meats and McDonald's for providing the platform for today's debate. So, I would like to remind you all that the topic covered by ourselves and the opposition today is that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. The opposing Captain Sarah danced around the true meaning of the word exclusively. To clarify, the word exclusively is synonymous with the words only, completely, entirely, defined by Cambridge Dictionary. Plant-based products are foods which are derived primarily or mostly from plants or animal rather than animal products. It has lengthened lifespans. However, Ciara herself stated that 70% of this diet is plant-based. Does that not mean that the remaining 30% is animal-based? This diet can hardly be described as exclusively plant-based. Primarily is not the same as exclusively. In fact, we agree that the diets such as the Mediterranean diet, which includes plenty of cheese to go with their pasta, are perfect examples of what a balanced diet that we are promoting today should look like. Claire stated that they are not suggesting a completely plant-based diet. In that case, aren't we all reckon fortified foods are the solution to every problem posed by this diet? But what about the higher cost of purchasing these products and the studies that have shown an increased risk of heart disease from consuming fortified foods? We acknowledge the opposition's arguments that overconsumption of red meat may negatively impact on one's health. However, complete exclusion of meat, along with fish, eggs, and dairy alike, is simply a senseless suggestion. As Paul explained, the bottom line of every research article in this area would never recommend such a radical. As stated before, it is a balanced diet with everything in moderation that we should be aiming towards. This is the opposite of exclusive. Today, the opposition would have you believe that a drastic reduction of livestock numbers to facilitate plant production will somehow increase the health of this planet. They have willfully ignored reality and blamed dairy and livestock production for our deteriorating environment. However, Barry has brought the facts to this argument and explained that unfortunately, tillage and crop production are not guilt-free. With a massive 1.64 times the amount of chemical nitrogen per hectare being applied by tillage farmers, or perhaps more worryingly, the figures which Barry detailed of untold and harmful effects of arable land receiving over 31 times the amount of pesticides per hectare. If the opposition's fantasy of plant-only production system in this country and worldwide were to be realised, imagine the state of our water quality then. To conclude, from the obliteration of farm livelihoods and rural communities to the known health issues concerning this form of diet, not to mention the unknown ones, it is simply unacceptable to even suggest that a completely, only, exclusively plan or maintain the health of planet or person. On a greater scale, to impose this diet across the globe would increase the divide between the developed and developing world in terms of health and economics. I encourage you all to stand with us in upholding the motion that an exclusively plant-based diet is neither healthy for planet nor person. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Michelle. And thereby we bring the debate to an end. Can I thank both UCC and DKIT for a wonderful debate. Certainly the judges have their work cut out, in my opinion. It was a really, really good event. Can I just say to all of you that all of the debates have now been recorded and will be streamed during the remainder of the week. And then on Friday, this Friday, March the 10th, we will gather again to announce the third, second, and first places in the debates, a Best Speaker award for each debate, and of course the announcement then as to the two finalists, first and second, who will travel to London for the live final debate on March 28th. So until then, thank you very much and goodbye.